Let me ask you something. What if the last decisions you made wasn't actually made by you? You know, there was a neuroscience study by Dr. John Dylan Haynes at the Max Planck Institute in Germany. That's a lot of words for me to say, right? Where researchers found they could predict the person's decision up to, guess what? 7 seconds before the person was even aware of making it. Listen to this. They found that the person's decision was made up for them up to 7 seconds before they were consciously aware of it. So what does that mean? That means that by the time you decide, you've already catching up to something that was already decided for you. So now the question becomes, who made that decision? How did that happen? And that's what we're going to be exploring on today's podcast, solo podcast of the Lifeonaire Show with Polish Peter. So welcome back. I am so excited to talk to you guys about this particular topic because, as you know, when we go and talk about on this podcast, we talk about a lot about life, business, beliefs. And Vojo, unfortunately, is not able to be here today, which is a good thing because I get to talk and blow up this podcast a little bit, maybe in a good or bad way, but we'll see how it happens. But what I wanted to talk to you guys today is this research, because I've read about this a few years back, and it literally kind of messed me up a little bit for a minute there. Because think about it this way, that the research basically says and suggests that our subconscious mind has made the decision for us up to 7 seconds before we are consciously making the decision. So think about it this way. If you are deciding to go to a restaurant, deciding on this deal, deciding on what you're going to eat for breakfast, deciding on, let's say you're going to go brush your teeth, deciding whatever decision that you are making, deciding to listen to this podcast, deciding to whatever it is that you're deciding to do, your subconscious has already decided that for you. Now, here is the caveat to that. I want to make sure. Your subconscious is basically this, we'll call it a vault, right? That has been collected from your entire life of all the different beliefs, all the different values, everything put together. And then you have your conscious, right? Conscious is like the CEO, that driver that supposedly drives the decision-making process. Now, depending on the decision, depending on your awareness, depending on how you are making that decision, it's going to depend whether or not decision was made subconsciously or actually your conscious CEO has maybe, made the decision the other way or kept going with the particular decision. But the awareness, I want you guys to recognize this, that the fact that up to 7 seconds the decisions can be already made for you, it's kind of crazy, isn't it? So let's talk about this for a minute because I want you guys to look from the perspective of, so when it comes to my parenting, when it comes to my health, when it comes to my business, when it comes to my relationships, like my marriage or like my relationship with my parents or my kids or business partners or anybody for that matter, you're telling me, Peter, that a lot of the decisions that I've made in the past and moving forward are probably going to be already made for me. And then I consciously maybe decide whether that's true or not. That's kind of what I'm saying. So where does this come from? And here is my belief system that comes into it. And this is what I talk about a lot. And that is your belief system. Your belief system is basically like the map of the entire world that you've created over the years. So it's your beliefs about societal beliefs, your beliefs about life, about people, about relationships, about money, about all kinds of different things that are subconsciously embedded in there that are running the show. So the way I look at the mind is, think about it this way. I will say it in a plain Polish Peter kind of a speak because I don't want to complicate things. So imagine inside your brain, you have all these different roads and they go anywhere from tiny little kind of a walkway that almost like you have to go through the woods, right, to get through it, to 7, 8, 9 lane super highways that have been created in there that you take every single day. Now, that 9 lane super highway is like you walking, right? Your subconscious have learned how to walk, and it's automatic, and it's always there, and it never disappoints. You don't even have to think about it, right? It just happens, like you're walking or talking, and whatever it might be, right? Some of us, it's a little bit harder like the others. We're just not here to make Polish jokes. So I'll make them myself. But that's what I'm talking about here, right? Now, the groove kind of thing, that little pathway through the woods that I mentioned, is something, maybe a new habit that you're trying to put into your life, right? And the more you keep walking down that path, now you start to create a little path. From that point on, you start to creating a little wider path, and becomes a little road. Then you put some asphalt on it. Then you put some actual 2-lane road. Then it's a 3, 4, 5, and 10-year freeway that is used all the time. Now, when it comes to creating a new habit, what ends up happening is you abandon the old superhighway and you're creating the new one. Now, let's go back to that 7-second decision that we talked about. So we talked about the beliefs, right? Maybe beliefs about your money, maybe beliefs about your spouse, about people, about when, about women, about kids, about whatever it might be, right? Then there's societal beliefs about groups of people, about society. Like, remember I talked about previously on this particular podcast about me growing up in a communist country. There is some belief system that comes when it comes to communism, right? There is some belief system that comes about capitalism, all kinds of different things, right? Now, we also have values that we value, right? What are your values that you value in life? I remember, talked about in my first marriage on this podcast, I mentioned my value system letter was sort of like business, then it was kids, then wife, and then God. Now, what I've done since then is, obviously, that for me personally wasn't the right way of doing it. I rearrange my value system, that it's God, that it's wife, kids, and business, and so forth and so forth. So now, if we were just to create this map, right, of who, let's say, Polish Peter is, I want you to think of it from your perspective, from your own self, the map that you have. If you think about it, there is beliefs that are driving that particular map. There is values that are driving that particular map. So, for instance, if you don't value, for instance, money a lot, right? You're not driven by money. You're going to make decisions and choices differently than someone who's very driven by money. So when you start to look at that perspective, you start to become much more aware of yourself. And I will tell you this, in my coaching with students, and whenever we do the events around the country, like the Get Life Giveaway events or the Business Builder events, we talk a lot about belief system, because if someone is struggling to get their business going, a lot of it has to do with the belief system. So the biggest thing that I can share with you on this particular podcast is that what I found out over the last 10, 11 years of coaching that I've been doing this, that most people are not aware of themselves, are not aware of what their value system is, are not aware of their belief system, are not aware who they really are. Because what ends up happening is, as we are growing throughout the life, we start to take on other people's beliefs, other people's values, and we start to act to be sort of like them, as opposed to be more like you, kind of a thing, more authentically you, right? So what I want you to look from the perspective, start questioning some of these beliefs. Stop questioning, what is it that I am doing that's leading me down this path? So I'll give you an example. Let's say that you are struggling in your business and you are trying to figure out, what is it that I'm struggling? Like, I've, saying yes to, this client, I'm trying to get clients, and I'm trying to, notice the word trying, right? We keep trying. By the way, there's no try, right? But I'm trying to get more money and trying to, charge more. I'm trying to get more clients, and it's just not working. Something's not working. So what is it? Well, let's look at my day. What is it that I am doing throughout my day? Well, I'm doing a lot of things. What am I doing? Well, maybe I'm doing a lot of website design. I'm putting this thing, let's say, some brochures together. I'm putting business cards together. I'm putting in my domain together. I need to find the website hosting and all those different things, right? So what is my belief system that's running? Well, maybe it is that I have to get everything right before I get going. Or maybe there's a fear behind it, right? What is the fear? Well, fear is that, what if I'm actually, become successful? And if I'm become successful, then guess what? What will people say? Well, people will say that maybe he's greedy, because why would that be? Well, growing up, I always thought that people are greedy. Notice how it goes down that rabbit hole, right? But you start to discover your belief system. And then when you get to the core of it, and you not decide, but you find out that one of your core beliefs is that you're a people pleaser, that you have to say yes to everyone and everything, because if you don't, the people don't like you and they're going to get mad at you, and that you have to be perfect, because if you're not perfect, then what it's all about, right? Because you learned that from your uncle. I'm just talking about myself a little bit, but I want you to listen for yourself, right? You start to learn those beliefs. Guess what? Now you know why 7 seconds before you actually make that choice, that has been already decided for you. So how do you actually shift that? Well, you start to shift your belief system. You start to shift your value system. You start to consciously start putting the new beliefs into place. You start creating the new value system. You write your vision that we talk about on this podcast constantly. And in that vision, you write down your value system. You write down what your beliefs are. You write down what, how you are being in life, who you are being in life, you know? And when you start doing this, then you read it every single day and you start to believe in. You're in the process of creating these new beliefs. Because think about it this way. Every single one of these beliefs that you have in your life, either it was created instantly in the very moment, because in that moment that there was so much emotion that it like completely overpowered you and you just decided and then it's stuck, or there was a period of time you kept repeating it over and over and over and over again from that seed that was created at some point, and now you have this strong belief. Now, if that's the case, you can create the new beliefs. So I want you to really dive into every single area of your life and start questioning, start asking yourself, what is my belief system? And not questioning it from the perspective of, there is this bias called confirmation bias. I'm not sure if I've ever heard of it, but confirmation bias basically is that we will look for information in the world to confirm what we already believe. That's why you see everything that's going on the internet, right? You see, and that's why, different groups don't agree with other groups, because they look for the information that already confirms what they already believe. So when I'm talking about questioning, I'm talking about literally questioning, is it really true? Does this belief really help me? Does this value that I have really help me to get to where I want to go to reach my goals? And if that's not the case, what belief do I have to believe? And you start writing this down, put it on paper, and then you start to visualize it. You start to ask yourself, what would I need to be doing, actually physically doing, to start rewiring and wiring this new belief into my nervous system? And when you start doing that, you start moving forward in it, you start to repeat it over and over again. And now that little tiny groove, the little tiny path that I talked about that you have in the woods becomes this highway. So I want you to consider this, because I don't think we were aware. I wasn't aware of the fact that up to 7 seconds, my decision's already made for me by my subconscious, because then all of a sudden I have this aha moment that says, so that's why I keep getting stuck in that same pattern over and over and over again. So now I need to look from the perspective, what are my beliefs? What are my values? What are the things that I think about? And, be aware of the different thoughts that you're going on throughout your day. I will tell you this, that from my experience, about 90% of your thoughts that go from one day to another are pretty much the same. So start journaling them. Start listening to yourself. And when you start doing that, you start to discover and be more aware of who you are to keep you moving to the next version. I would say the more authentic version of you. So this was a shorter episode because Vojo's not here to ask me all kinds of different questions, but hopefully this was very helpful for you. I would love for you guys to join us on the Lifeonaire podcast here. Put a review. We would love to see reviews from you. Get on Facebook. We have a group over there, public group that you can get in there. Just look up Lifeonaire. You get in there, ask questions, tell me about your thought about this particular episode, and let's start the conversation. Let's see how we can support you. We jump in there, Vojo and I, and a whole bunch of different Lifeonaires that are here to support you to create the life and create the business that actually supports that life. So without further ado, I'll see you guys on the next episode of the Lifeonaire Show.